Like most people, you've probably got a lot going on. So if you can't make it to a Charles Bookwalter for Congress town hall, we'll bring the town hall to you. Join Charles Bookwalter Thursday nights at 7 p.m. for a digital town hall, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Jump into the comments section to join in the conversation. Make a comment or ask Charles for his opinions on the issues that are most important to you. That's the Charles Bookwalter for Congress digital town hall, streaming live beginning at 7 p.m. Thursday nights, exclusively on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Bookwalter for Congress to learn more.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth,
Radio check, radio
it was
check.
because here in this land, we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire.
Like most
To the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
The Bookwalter for Congress Greenberry experience just got even better. This is the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall. Your chance to talk directly with Charles Bookwalter about the issues important to you. Jump into the comments and join the conversation. Now, without further ado, here's your host, congressional candidate for Indiana's 4th District, Charles Bookwalter. Welcome to the show. My name is Kramer, and with me, as always, is Charles Bookwalter. Charles, welcome to the show. It's been another hectic week in Washington, D.C. I can't wait to get down to the bottom of what's going on. What do you want to start the show with tonight?
Well, I want to invite everyone to the show tonight. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. You can clearly see that we're entering like the campaign season because there's so many people that are interested in what's going on, that are contacting the campaign. There's gubernatorial debates going on, Lincoln Day dinners, and candidate forums. So I encourage you, I think I'm going to bookend this conversation with the encouragement of people to go out and vote and drag 10 of your friends or family members with you to the primary this year. That's my intro.
There you go. That's. I think it needs to be said. When you look at the numbers in the state of Indiana, that 60 to 80% of the people do not vote in the primary, and then they turn around and complain about the product or the candidates that they have to vote for in the fall. I kind of put that at their feet. Do you rest what we get, who we can pick, who we can pick between in the fall, as it's the responsibility of the constituents to do that, not the parties?
Yeah, and like in honor of what we're saying is like, or the theme of what these town hall meetings is probably going to be is that the general is for the party, the primary is for the people. So everybody, this is our shot to get engaged and to do something about it. You know, I was thinking about it today and doing a kind of a self-assessment of the campaign. I think that in Indiana and the United States, this campaign in the 4th District is probably one of the strongest grassroots campaigns that you'll see. It's pretty formidable. There's a lot of people involved.
Well, and that's what's happening on a national basis. We're getting a lot of attention just because we're making the contacts we need to make and aligning with those people that believe the exact same thing that we believe and are calling out for people to be active in their primary. Is what's his name? Eli Crane. His call on Friday was for people to get involved.
Yeah, particularly grassroots candidates. And the reason I was thinking about it today is because someone called me about a campaign related item, and they acknowledged that we had a bunch of people working in different areas, and they're like, how does that work? How do you get so many people involved at this high level in your campaign? And well, one, it's not me. It's by the grace of God. That was my first answer. But by the grace of God, you're surrounded by good people. And then if you're kind and generous and you tell the truth, then usually you can keep good people around you. That's typically
Well, here's what I find interesting. Let's get down to brass tacks here. You said here in your open, just there, honesty and transparency. And there was a vote last week in D.C. on a $1.2 trillion spending bill. Jim Baird voted for it. Now, he's claiming now that it was a clerical error, a mistake, but if you don't know, those votes are locked in stone. Charles, is this a problem?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we talked about. What this bill did is it funded 6 agencies. I've read through the summaries of both the GOP and the Democrats, and the one common theme that you'll find is both parties celebrate the passage of this bill. The Democrats celebrated it seems like more one of the overview of what the Democrats say when they have written their summary is the fiscal year 2024 Department of Defense funding bill provides $824.3 billion, an increase of $26.8 billion above fiscal year 2023. So and Republicans are trying to say that they've saved a lot in some agencies, and they cut the EPA by 9.6%. And as I go out in the 4th congressional district, the number one complaint that small and medium farmers have is dealing with the EPA. Now, I don't talk to a lot of giant farmers, but my guess is they don't mind the EPA because that's how those relationships are made big. the EPA can keep a lot of small farmers out of business through their regulation and their pressures and fines and all that kind of stuff, whereas they tend to work more with the larger big ag. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I wanted to jump in. Sorry about that. I wanted to jump in and say, let's play this ad that we just released against Jim Baird, because what he did is disgusting. He's calling what happened a mistake, but it's a $1.2 trillion mistake that we can't afford, and we're going to be expected to pick up the tab on.
What does Chip Roy think about Jim Baird's yes vote for Biden's $1.2 trillion spending bill?
Any Republican who votes for this bill should be ashamed of themselves.
Jim Baird should be ashamed, and we should be disgusted.
This budget funds full-term abortion. It's trans ideology on our youth as young as 12 years old.
But at least Baird voted to protect the border, right?
If you care about the border, you're getting nothing here.
On May 7th, vote no to big government Jim Baird.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
That's what we can expect from Jim Baird. Big government Jim Baird. It's not going to get any better. He's only gotten worse as he's gotten older. I've known Jim for 15, 20 years, and he has become more and more of an establishment hack. This is my opinion, not Charles, but I'm sickened by these politicians who do one thing and then say another. The audacity of this man, Charles, and I'm going to let you take it. These are my words, but I think it takes a lot of narcissism to go vote that way and then turn around and tell the people of the 4th District that you didn't vote that way. Your opinion?
Yeah, I'm not sure, what to think about that. I don't really know. I think that if you look at the voting record of Congressman Baird, it's pretty clear that in the past and before he ever had a primary challenger, you could guess that whenever a bill came up like this, then he voted for it. He voted for Ukraine packages and omnibus bills and continuing resolutions and minibus bills as they came up before, about the 2022-2023 timeframe when he started having a primary challenger. So, he has a track record of voting in that way. And so when I saw that the vote came through, because we were watching it, it was a yay, I was like, well, that's no surprise.
Right.
But yeah, it was a surprise to see, saying that a statement saying that they opposed it. It was a little bit confusing. So I don't know. I don't know. Politics is such an ugly game. When you look at it, you can't really, it's hard to discern what the actual truth of the matter is. But it looks like either Jim Baird made a mistake or he intentionally voted for the yay bill. If you look at his track record, it wouldn't be unusual. It's not a surprise that he voted for that bill, but I'm not calling him a liar. If he didn't intentionally vote for the bill, then he accidentally pushed the yay button. And that's a $1.2 trillion mistake. And, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, what does that mean over the next 2 years? Everyone knows that we're at an inflection point. Everybody knows that we're at a point where things have to change. We have to do some serious reflection. That we're very divisive. Everyone understands everyone talking about Black Swan events and all this kind of stuff. And so there's a microscope on Congress right now, on government right now, and it's very likely that our congressman just made a mistake.
Well, okay, let's jump into that. So Baird just makes a mistake.
That's unacceptable
right
now. That is absolutely unacceptable. I understand that it may be difficult to vote on a bunch of things a day or to stay on top of it all. And by the way, Mike Johnson, and it shows that one of the wins that the Democrats talked about is one of the wins is that Mike Johnson implemented a stay on that 72-hour bill. He said that they don't get 72 hours to read it. I'm looking at page after page of summaries of these bills. It'd take me days to understand all this. And they suspended that rule. So,
well, let me put it this way. I think that the way that the general constituent, just the average dude in the street, looks at this is regardless of whether it's a mistake or not, it's still going to cost us. And the fact that Jim Baird didn't have two things. He didn't have either the clarity or the chutzpah to vote correctly when he had the opportunity. More importantly, when he made the mistake, he issued this statement saying he voted against it with no clarification that there was a problem. So you've got people on social media going to his page going, way to go, Jim. Great job, Jim. They're excited. But regardless of what happened, the damage is still done. Don't you think that Baird should make some kind of public statement? I know why he's not. We're 5 weeks out from an election. That's why he's not going to say I made a mistake and I voted for a bill that everyone hates. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was decided by 6 votes. I mean, this is how, when people ask me why they should go out and vote in the primary or why I'm optimistic, it's because I've seen over the last few years as this group out in Washington, D.C. that is standing up and pushing back a little, led by like Chip Roy, Matt Gaetz, and all these people. I'm optimistic about it. So this vote was decided by 6 votes. So we need to see that imagine if we had 6 more people out there that voted the right way, and we would have a whole different way we're looking at how we're legislating. And some of the opponents that came out of that against the bill said that some of the senators said we should have been deciding on these single line appropriation bills months ago. But now they throw this in our lap of this giant bill that has all these other things in it, and they have to vote on this, $800 billion bill, so they can't be held accountable for all their individual votes. But the fact is like everyone is talking about wanting to have some serious reduction in the size of our federal government. And Vivek Ramaswamy, when he was running, he announced a 75% reduction. Remember, he said things like, we take the alphabet and every other letter. That your last name begins with that, you lose your federal job. Well, this bill increased federal jobs to the EPA of like 1,000 people. So, yeah. So the fact is that that message that Vivek Ramaswamy was saying was highly receptive. A lot of people saw it. They know these agencies can be cut by 50%. So what it takes is not voting for these bills and passing them that fund all these agencies. These agents, what do they fund? The Department of Agriculture, Justice, Commerce, Energy, Interior, Transportation, Housing, Urban Development, and Veterans Affairs, as well as many smaller agencies. So,
but Charles, when they say they're funding these agencies from the outside, from the person who doesn't know how government really works, is that they give all this money to the agencies, and then the agencies determine how that money is going to roll out from underneath their auspice. So what we have is, and I think this is interesting, we saw from Jesse Waters last week, a lot of this information that came out is that millions of dollars for programs. Rand Paul was talking about it from the Senate floor. A test to see if giving alcohol versus vodka, or giving vodka versus rum to fish makes them more aggressive. I mean, this is what this is the spending, or finding out. Does it make more sense? The study behind Neil Armstrong's One Giant Leap for Mankind. Did he really say one giant leap or a giant leap for a man? Was he making it personal, or was he? They spent $1 million studying that, and at the end of it, what do we have? They still can't tell you. That's your money, folks. That's your money.
Here's a small concern. $1 million here, $1 million. I thought just $1 million to fight fentanyl or something like that. But there's the amount of money they're spending on Homeland Security and Border Patrol is unbelievable. It's in the billions and billions of dollars. So again, these bills are like the Republicans would say, we cut $1 million here and we cut $500,000 here, and then we turn around and give these exorbitant amount of money to Border Patrol, Border Security, things that I've talked about. That this is just the Border Patrol and Homeland Security that was developed after 9/11 are just political organizations that kind of change as the president comes in. And so, look, I want to get into real quickly this philosophy here, this idea. It's not my idea. It's an idea by a guy named by the name of Robert Higgs. I can't remember what books he wrote this in, but I read one of them and I just remembered this. It's the ratcheting effect, what this guy talked about. So the ratcheting effect is how government grows no matter who's in charge. And this bill is a perfect example of how this matching effect works. And I highlighted some of these things. I don't know if I can bring them all up right at the precise moment, but um, the government grows no matter what. So when Democrats in charge, they spend all this amount of money on their pet project, and they give a little bit to the Republicans over here to fund some wars and some other agencies that Republicans like. And then when it changes and Republicans are in charge, then they just get to choose where to allocate all this money to their organizations and friends. And then they still give a little bit of Democrats to make them happy so that they pass their bills. And so it's constantly a ratcheting effect. And it's called, this is a philosophy called the ratcheting effect of government. I can completely see it because in this bill right here, there's just so much where they just didn't fund the Democrat pet projects as much as they have in the past. But that money was just shifted and given to another big government organization that real Republicans, real true conservatives are looking at like, no, we don't want that money to be reallocated to that group over there. And so this bill, this minimus bill, is the best example of the ratcheting effect that I've ever seen. If you look through, you look at all the Border Patrol money, the border's a big issue. And I think we're good on the border. I think we need to close the border down. That's the thing, is it's giving billions of dollars to Border Patrol, which we've already known is a political issue and ineffective, instead of the president just saying that we are closing the border, closing the gates. We're closing the border. We're going to patch the holes, and no one comes in. And that's how it's going to be. That would save so much money, and we wouldn't have to give billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars to Homeland Security and Border Control to continue to mismanage what's going on. They're clearly doing. It's the worst it's ever been in the United States, is the border issue right now, and it's been an issue our entire lives. It's hard for me not to get back to the overall thing we always talk about, which is how this managerial class is mismanaging nearly everything that we're doing. And this minibus bill just gives support it funds the mismanagement. And I get a lot of calls.
And let me jump in there real quick. More importantly than that, it's not these additional agents that they're hiring are not to repel the invasion of our southern border. It's to process them quicker.
Yeah.
No different than the flights that are coming out of Venezuela and South America, because they're saying, well, that journey on people is too hard. So we're going to fly illegal aliens into our nation at taxpayer expense. That's what this bill does. Not does, they're doing. It's already happening. Jim Baird just voted for additional dollars to bring these people in. Well, he made a mistake. Don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
A yes vote is a yes vote. If that was too much of a deal for Jim Baird to be there, then maybe Jim Baird should be in Congress. Maybe if he can't pay attention to the details of what his constituents are saying, from everything from carbon sequestration to spending $1.2 trillion we don't have, maybe it's time for Jim to go and retire. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Look, I had someone call me today, and we were actually, it was a state representative here in Indiana. And we were talking a little bit about my plan for the future if we were to win. And this person said, when you win, not if you win, but when you win. And this person said, being this job, and I can only imagine the federal level, it's going to take a lot of your time. How are you going to be in the district that much? And I was thinking about it today. I mean, yeah, it's a big ask. It's a lot of work. But that's what this job should be. It should be somebody that is working a lot of hours in the day to do this job the way it needs to be done. So you stay on top of these bills and amendments and all this. You don't make little mistakes like that. So you're in a leadership position that you have people working with. My understanding is when you're on the House floor voting for this, that your chief of staff is watching the House vote and ensure that this discussion has already been had. There's whips in Congress. When it comes to this bill, they know who's voting on what. They knew those 6 votes, right? So if Congressman Baird would have come out and voted no, someone would have hammered his chief of staff, been like, hey,
Yep.
Congressman voted no. He needs a yes vote, and the yes vote, we only got this by 6 votes. We need to make, and so my understanding is a really good handle on. There's a few people looking at this, and if it's not happening, that's a leadership issue. My understanding is the Bears team doesn't even have to keep the staff, and they haven't had to keep the staff for like a year. They haven't had to keep the staff in that office. So again, this job, and the way we look at it, particularly Kramer, I've been asked this a lot: is what's my agenda? What's my legislative agenda? What's my goal? What's my philosophy? It is about being a representative to the people of the 4th Congressional District, not a legislator. So that means working long hours, looking at these bills, understanding them, asking professional opinions, having people look at this, putting together a staff and a team that can make sure all the people are getting answered, all the blocks are getting checked, and you're in the right place at the right time. It takes a crew of highly dedicated and hardworking people to do this job the way I think it needs to be done. And I'm just surprised that I see more articles about how it's incredible that septuagenarians and octogenarians, 70 and 80-year-old people are still in Congress when that's the first time in the history of mankind when we've had people that of this age in the ruling class, if you will. Throughout history, it's never been these older ages, and I would argue that right now the ruling class.
Well, we're showing that
managing it more that they've never mismanaged it more than they.
That's right. We've seen over the last 20 years our nation, and it's happened really over the last 40 to 50, but in the last 20 in particular, and the same group of people have been involved the entire time. Charles, I didn't cause those problems. You're not causing inflation. You're not getting us into wars, right? We're fighting just the opposite of that. So if we've got the best people possible representing us, and we're in this type of situation, what does that say about our culture? If this is the best we can do, I dare to say that it's not, that we can do better. And we'll be talking about exactly what that is right after we come out of this.
Hoosiers have been clear. They do not support Joe Biden's Green New Deal. So why does Jim Baird? Why is Jim Baird fighting so hard to bring Joe Biden's Green New Deal to Indiana? Learn more at firejimbaird.com. If Jim Baird is really so against Joe Biden's Green New Deal, why is he supporting so many of its big spending programs? Why does Jim Baird support Joe Biden's Green New Deal? Learn more at firejimbaird.com. On May 7th, vote Charles Bookwalter for Congress.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
This is Jim Baird. Jim Baird claims to be a conservative, claims to have the same exact values you have, then turns around and votes in favor of Joe Biden's bloated $1.2 trillion spending bill. Here's what's in it.
This budget funds full-term abortion. It funds DEI. It funds trans ideology on our youth as young as 12 years old.
For the first time in 6 years, the 4th District has a choice in who we send to Washington, D.C. On May 7th, vote for true conservative leadership. Charles Bookwalter.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
This is the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall. Your chance to talk directly with Charles Bookwalter about the issues important to you. Jump into the comments and join the conversation. Now, without further ado, here's your host, congressional candidate for Indiana's 4th District, Charles Bookwalter.
The item we're discussing tonight is Jim Baird's either apparent vote or apparent mistake or whatever happened, where he voted on the record, well, regardless of what you want to call it. Whether it was a mistake or otherwise, the vote stays. He doesn't get to go back and do a do-over. There's no mulligans in voting in the House. And so he voted to spend $1.2 trillion that we don't have. Charles, let's jump into some of this spending. You went over it today. What are some of these items specifically that you can bring up that showcase just how ridiculous this spending bill is and how much out of control the spending in Washington, D.C. has gotten? These programs are slush funds. It's how they bring money back to the district, and they tell everybody, look at what I did for you. Look at all this money I brought back. There was a lady here specifically in the last couple of days I saw on social media when she was asked about what she had spent, she couldn't answer the question. She couldn't rectify why she had done it. And then she turned it around. Well, I did this over here, but you also harmed us here. You have ownership of that. What about that? She couldn't do it. Charles, do you think that Baird's doing the same exact thing here? Do you think that he made a mistake and realized it and now wants to say that he voted for it? I don't know. To your point, I know how the whips in D.C. work. And if they've got a guy that they can reward later with something, whatever that be, a new project coming, we'll give your carbon sequestration bill a push, right? Because that's how it happens. But we need your vote here. Those are the politics that we see in D.C. Is that how you intend to operate as a candidate?
Yeah, of course, that is completely unethical, I think. Of course, we don't know what goes on in Washington, D.C., but I don't think that the U.S. House of Representatives clerk made a mistake on which way this vote went. I mean, again, like I've said, the congressman has a history of voting for these bills. It's not uncommon. It was decided by 6 votes, so it's I'm sure that whip was whipping hard to make sure they knew where they were on that vote. There's a microscope on these votes right now, and if it were a mistake, I just don't. That is a very terrible mistake, and very catastrophic, and has long-term consequences. I mean, here's one thing right on the top of my. And here's the thing: is that it happens under Republicans too. We spend more no matter what. These Republicans are spending these bills. $29.3 billion for USAID, economic and development assistance, global health, and humanitarian programs. 29. There's billions after billions of these bills where, when people say, when I make a complaint and say, "Oh, we're sending 300 more, whatever billion to Ukraine," like, "Oh, that's just a drop in the bucket in the amount of money we spend." But when you add all this up, like, that's literally what we're talking about, is adding up all these bills. And what's worse, what happens is, like in that first minibus bill, some of these bills got passed that Republicans didn't want. And so they come in this spending bill and they get the Democrats to remove the language of it, and then they call that a win. And so in these summary pages, it says that here's one: prohibiting implementation. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Strengthening the prohibition on sending taxpayer dollars to the Taliban. Okay. They had to write in there and remove. They had to strengthen the prohibition on sending taxpayer dollars to the Taliban, and Republicans are write it that is good. They've
that's a win.
Strengthened the prohibition on that.
Right. They've taken it as a win.
Like it's a win. Like it's a win. When we're saying that, like, there's so much in here that we want it all to stop, that it's almost laughable that a bullet in the win column is that you strengthen the prohibition on sending taxpayer dollars to the Taliban, our enemy of 25 years.
I'm laughing.
Who walked away with Afghanistan, who literally walked away with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And when statist people that aren't Second Amendment fans, I saw this something on Twitter today talk about, well, it's laughable to think the Patriots can ever fight off the U.S. government. I mean, the U.S. government has so many arms and all that. And I think, hello, Afghanistan just defeated the last 2 military empires, Russia in the 80s and the United States. I mean, the Taliban is in charge right now in Afghanistan, and they've got $80 billion of U.S. materiel there. So,
well, they're saying now that it wasn't $80 billion, that it was closer to 24. It was only $24 billion. Only $24 billion. Only $24 billion. Here's, when we started the show tonight, the plea to folks is to have them be active in the primaries. The primaries are where you get to pick the candidate that gets to go up against the Democrat in the fall. If you don't play your role, the party will pick that person. They'll give someone that you don't like a lot of money. They'll give someone who doesn't vote the way that you like a lot of money. They'll give someone who has different values and ideology than you. They'll give them all this money, and then when you speak out, you're the problem. Here's Eli Crane talking about the problem. The people have to send them great candidates.
I'm definitely not as eloquent as many of my colleagues up here. First, I want to speak to the politicians up here that are going to vote for this. Like many of my colleagues have said, you own it. All the garbage, all the funding for borders overseas, but you won't lift a finger to stop the invasion at our southern border. Here's the deal, guys. The American people, though they may be busy raising their families, they are busy, but they're not dumb. And they are gracious. They don't expect us to win every fight. They know that we're outnumbered up here. But here's the deal. They do expect us to fight. And that is something that this party has refused to do time and time again. It's one of the most frustrating things to be a part of. We know what the Democrats are going to do. They're going to destroy the country. They're driving us off the cliff at 95 miles per hour. Well, guess what? Our solution, the Republican Party, we're going to dial that down to 90 miles per hour, but we're still driving this thing off the cliff. We're backing it down a couple degrees, and it's pathetic. All right? Pick a principled fight. I don't know, maybe like the border invasion. I hear leadership say it's the hill we're going to die on. Really? Do you even know what that means? That means you got to take a hill and be willing to die on it. I don't see it. And until I see it, I'm not going to be like a lot of politicians up here and be a cheerleader for it. Because it's garbage and it's destroying this country. It's destroying the future for my kids and your kids. Now I want to speak really quickly to the American people. I know you're busy.
By the way, for those watching, this right here is where he's calling on you. You have to get involved. Charles has been doing this throughout the 4th District for the last 4 years, being involved. Now it's your chance. We've done all the legwork. We've knocked on doors. We've raised money. We're here. We're ready to fight. But it takes you being active, and that's what Eli Crane is calling on for you to do here.
I know it's hard out there. I know you're being killed by inflation. I know many of you have lost your kids to fentanyl. If you want to help us, start paying attention. And please, quit sending politicians up here who come to your town, who come to your Lincoln Reagan Day dinner talking about fiscal responsibility, border security, and then they vote on this crap repeatedly. You can help us. Quit sending them up here. Because in case you guys haven't noticed, we are radically outnumbered. It's always the same names. It's always the same names of people trying to stop it.
Because they're
captured. It's
captured.
always the same names, unfortunately, who talk a good game in the media and back at home in their districts. And then they come up here and they vote for this crap, hoping that you don't pay attention. You can help us. Clearly, I'm a hell no on this bill.
A great example of what we're talking about. Go ahead and jump in there, Charles.
Yeah, that's the biggest message there is like, and this is what we got to quit sending them these same people. And here's why it's particularly important in the 4th Congressional District, because everybody knows, and I don't mean to say it any other way, but everyone knows that our congressman is on the border, on the borderline of retirement.
Yep.
He is on the verge. He should not have been running for this term. Like, let's face it, he promised he would run for 3 terms. He's running for his 4th term, and he's going to be 80 years old during this term. And like, we had got to stop sending that. He said he wasn't going to run again. This is going to take a lot of strength and a lot of effort to join the people like Eli Crane and stop sending them these people that just support the leadership like that. And I go to the same dinners he's talking about, these Lincoln Day dinners, Reagan Day dinners. Kramer, you've been to a couple of them too. I've been to dozens and dozens of them. And what's one of my biggest complaints is they all say the same thing. And they've been saying the same thing for a long time. And those of you, this is why I know we're picking up a lot of steam, because I get calls after these Lincoln Day dinners that I go speak at.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, dude, I heard what you had to say there. I looked up your website and I want a yard sign, a big one in my yard. That's what I hear. And how can I send you some money? Because these Lincoln Day, he's right. It's this they speak the language that we want to hear. How many times have I said this? They speak the language that we want to hear, and then they get elected and they do not do what we agreed, that commitment that we agreed on, the way that they would represent us in that role. And here's how he said it. Eli Crane said, I'm not going to be a politician. like an average politician that stands up here and does this or goes to Lincoln Day dinner. And what he's saying is that he's going to act in the benefit of the people before he acts in the interest of the party. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying to everybody. And that's what he's asking that you have to send him out into Washington, D.C. as reinforcements, as people that will act in the interest of the people and not in the interest of the party. It's a fine line. These party people are very into the party. Like, it's party for principle. It's party for people. It's party for your career. The same reason you're seeing on these bills, all these funding for new jobs, is because if you can make a bunch of people dependent on you for a job, then you can continue to expand the growth of government. There's stuff in here for government unions, of which I don't even think that you should have any. More funding for agencies to have more and more jobs. There's increases in military and housing for government employees. I mean, they just continue to vote for themselves more and more at a time when the rest of us are hurting. Here's some 5.2% for increased pay for the military, 5.4 for basic allowance. Here's the Democrats know a lot. They tell the truth. They say that this bill, it protects our national security, preserves our domestic advanced manufacturing base to support jobs. At least Democrats say that what we're doing is we're taking your money and we're creating jobs and an economy. We're your socialists, and we're admitting that we like that. And that's what they're doing. At least they admit it. Republicans call it economic development.
Right.
Like, hey, we're just doing some economic development over here. We're just giving a bunch of people, military contractors, a bunch of money and research and development and billions of dollars to create all this stuff. But it's economic development. It's not advanced. It's not based to support jobs. At least Democrats just call it what it is. A base to support jobs and grow the economy. This bill also preserved the department's travel policy to ensure service members and their families can access reproductive care. Now, so when I read that, I think, so that means more women can have babies. That's reproductive health care, right? That's what. But no, I think it actually means to murder a child or abort that child. But this bill didn't stop that from happening. It actually, and that is in the military. It includes a $1 billion increase above 2023 for climate and energy resiliency. So, any bill they pass, it's going to have some kind of additional green energy funding in it. And I'm telling you, this might end up being one of the worst things that ever been perpetrated, worse than vaccines. I don't know, maybe. Is this green energy scam? I don't know what more money is behind. Pharmaceutical companies and their jabs, or green energy companies and their scams on everybody. I'm not sure who's getting more money to do this at this point. So some of the things that Democrats are talking that was good about the bill, and
what was the Charles? What was the big win, the big takeaway for the Republicans in this bill? They're going to make sure that LGBTQIA flags don't fly at U.S. embassies.
Yeah,
that was the takeaway for the Republicans. That's how we won.
The Democrats say that was actually taken out of the bill. This legislation rejects nearly 30 new poison pill riders proposed by House Republicans, including harmful language. So Democrats are saying that they stopped this from happening, banned the flying of the pride flag. So Democrats are saying they actually got that removed. So Republicans must not have won that one either.
Wow. And
once again, Kramer, what it is, and people, it's Republicans giving up a principal stance last minibus bill or something like that a few votes ago, and then they come back here and they say, look what we've done, we won it back in this,
It's the old guy. You see him in a gas station rest stop, right? He's in the restroom. You walk in, and his face is all bloodied up. He's got blood come out of his nose. He's got 2 black eyes. One of his ears is halfway ripped off, and he turns around and looks at you and says, "Well, you should see the other guy." That's what they want us to believe, is that, we got really beat up, but you should see what we took away, what we won. We're disgusted by it. I got a question here from Cynthia Groves Bookwalter. She says, it sounds like they're related to you. When you and other challengers in Indiana win, how will you view the state party that you have had to fight to even be a part of?
The first, this is how it's been with me, is the fight is in the party. That's why in the primary is the people's choice. That's why it's so important to come out and vote in the primary. I feel that the base of the Republican and the Republican core values and real Republicans within the district are actually coalesced. That there actually is a majority of people that think like I do. They're just not engaged in the system. They're working hard to support their families, and they're just blue-collar, average people that have conservative principles. So I think actually the party is more representative of someone with views that are more in alignment with mine. They just need to be encouraged to step out and vote. I hate to quote Nixon here, but I think it is Nixon's silent majority quote that he talked about a silent majority in America, and I really do believe it. If you look at it, primary voters are going to come out like 12% or less, okay? So 78% of Hoosiers are not voting in the primary. There are a lot of people in that category that I think like us and feel like us. So really all we're doing is we're going to lead. We're going to work with Republicans that are doing so well. We're going to encourage those that are doing a great job. There are some Republican GOPs in our district that really do a good job, work with the people, encourage people to get involved in the party. And there's some that don't. There's some that don't do anything, and it's just a little private club, and they try to keep people out. So we're going to go work with those parties that I feel that are bringing people into the party and trying to do good things, and are conservative and principled, and we're going to try to bring those others along.
Well, let me ask you this. Having known you over the last few months and really gotten to know you as a man, who you are and what you say you're going to do and so on, when you're put in these situations where the whips come to you or they've got a bad bill, and that bill is disastrous for the United States, it's disastrous for the 4th District, are you going to be one of those guys that just keeps your head down, keep your mouth shut, and just vote against it but not say anything? Or are you going to be a loudmouth about it?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Of course, I appreciate that lob of a question that would say that I'll be a loudmouth, because that's exactly what. If we're really at an inflection point, it's kind of like I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Environmentalists say that that there's a climate catastrophe, but they're buying $1 million homes on the edge of the coast, like it's going to be overrun, but.
Well, let me ask you this. We have another question, and we're going to go to a break right after this one here. Marsha B. from X is asking you, what's your view on the DOJ's new red flag law push?
Hey, thanks, Marsha, for asking that. I've actually got a whole hey, how about we take a break, and we'll come back, and I'll answer that.
Perfect. We can do that. We will be right back after this.
What does Chip Roy think about Jim Baird's yes vote for Biden's $1.2 trillion spending bill?
Any Republican who votes for this bill should be ashamed of themselves.
Jim Baird should be ashamed, and we should be disgusted.
This budget funds full-term abortion. It funds DEI. It funds trans ideology on our youth as young as 12 years old.
But at least Baird voted to protect the border, right?
If you care about the border, you're getting nothing here.
On May 7th, vote no to big government Jim Baird.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
Hoosiers have been clear. They do not support Joe Biden's Green New Deal. So why does Jim Baird? Why is Jim Baird fighting so hard to bring Joe Biden's Green New Deal to Indiana? Learn more at firejimbaird.com. If Jim Baird is really so against Joe Biden's Green New Deal, why is he supporting so many of its big spending programs? Why does Jim Baird support Joe Biden's Green New Deal? Learn more at firejimbaird.com. On May 7th, vote Charles Bookwalter for Congress.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
This is the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall. Your chance to talk directly with Charles Bookwalter about the issues important to you. Jump into the comments and join the conversation. Now, without further ado, here's your host, congressional candidate for Indiana's 4th District, Charles Bookwalter.
And we're back. The first question we're going to take is Marcia B. from X. She's asking your view on the DOJ's new red flag law push. By the way, I'll add in that 7 days prior to that, a federal judge said it's okay for illegal aliens to carry firearms as the DOJ comes after American citizens who are carrying firearms. Charles?
Yeah, now I'll just remind everybody in the 4th District that Jim Baird does have a history of voting for red flag laws. He voted for an NDAA in 2021, I believe it was, that included red flag laws for military personnel. And it was later removed in the Senate after some negotiation. But Jim Baird's claim to fame is that he joined 100 other congressmen and wrote a, quote, sternly worded letter to the Senate that the red flag law language needed to be removed. But notwithstanding, that was voted on. And if it wasn't removed right now, there would be red flag law language that would govern military service members. So what Marcia is referring to is the ERPO that I've got some notes taken here. I looked it up a little bit because it's greatly concerning to me. The National Extreme Risk Protection Order is what he's referring to. It was funded by the bipartisan SAFE Act, or SAFER Act, which was a gun control legislation act that was passed in 2022. And this bill gave some additional infrastructure to that SAFER Act, that gun control legislation. And this is the Department of Justice is creating this centralized location in order to coordinate all the red flag law states and centralize reporting into the federal government. So they want to have a place, a repository to track all the red flag law states, and then have all of those infractions that come in through red flag laws go into a centralized federal database. Now, there's not that many details out right now, but that is the gist of it. I did look at it real briefly, and anyone can go to that website and look at it. And it looks like, I didn't play with that much, and I watched some videos on it, but it looked like you can submit some information if you are, let's say, a concerned citizen. Actually, the verbiage of who qualifies to make these claims, it says are, quote, family and household members. But that can be very broad in definition when you're talking about these things. And I think there was also additional language that said social service providers and others. So it's almost like anybody can submit a request, and it's really done over a website that, again, is centralized through the Department of Justice, where they can submit information about somebody that they think is having a mental issue or whatever.
Well, the concern,
local law enforcement can go in and disarm them without due process of law. So again, based without a court case, with nothing going to court, no due process, no trial by jury, and this happens a lot in the military, but that
was what I was getting ready to jump into.
Wife or a family member or a mother-in-law can make a claim on a service member, or in this case on anybody, and they can say that they're not mentally stable to have a gun, and the local law enforcement can come in, take their gun, and then figure it out later.
Which is unconstitutional. Listen, we don't want anything bad happening, but at the same time, we have to abide by the Constitution. We have to have due process of law. If we don't, and they can just pick and choose which laws and which parts of the Constitution they're going to abide by, then we don't have a Constitution and we don't have real law. Another question here from Jam 5.56 from YouTube. He's asking, I have a question. WTF we going to do about the border?
I talk about this a lot on probably every single one of my town hall meetings. So just kind of reestablish what I look at and what I see, what I advocate for. One is an immediate closure of the border. Like literally any president, and I'd have to look into to see if Congress can do this, but they can literally close the border. I know there's commerce going back and forth, but they can close it to a certain people and only have commerce or whatever. We can close the border for non-citizens. We can do that. And we need to do that immediately. And we need to take this political issue, which is the federal government uses with multiple administrations, Democrat and Republican, liberal and conservative, and they use the border as a political volleyball to go back and forth. They develop programs and agencies and bureaucracies like Homeland Security and Border Patrol. Then they fund them year after year, decade after decade with exorbitant funds and all kinds of infrastructure, and things get worse. The border has never been worse than it's ever been, despite this unbelievable investment in government organizations and infrastructure, and which has resulted in a decrease of our civil rights. So my contention is we need to take that money away from these federal governments, give it to the border states, and give these border states autonomy to deal with these border issues like they're already proving that they can do. And they can do much better, much more efficient, and much less expensive. And then you remove this political football that has been going on my entire life and my parents' entire life and our grandparents' entire life. So we need to make the border states give them more autonomy and remove this complete control and decision-making power from the federal government, because it's clearly been proven. It is proven that it is not working what they're doing.
No, well, we can see it at the grocery store.
You can see it in these sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
When New York and Chicago are coming out saying our cities are being overrun with people that we don't know who they are, that ought to tell everybody everything they ought to know. So, it's not possible to do. We cannot continue to do this.
Got another question here from Jennifer Beyer. Will you know what you're voting on for unlike Baird? Will you know what you're voting for unlike Baird?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, for the question. That's why you have to have a staff, and you have to not ever let them suspend those rules to look at it for like 72 hours. I'd like to think that we have enough time to read these bills. And I will work very hard to understand everything that's in these bills. But my guess is that when you don't even have to get very deep into one of those bills before you realize there's no way I'm voting for this bill.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not be a no, but be a hell no. Charles,
right, exactly.
Let's wrap up tonight's show talking about the special fundraiser that you had last weekend. What a blast. It was a little cold, a little windy, but once the sun came out, it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had as an adult.
Yeah, that's great. Then maybe I'll just start off with one of my fondest memories is probably watching you work with a close friend of mine that came from out of state to help us, former member of the highest U.S. military elite special operations soldiers, and he was a real asset to have. He worked with a number of people and everybody out there. So seeing him, who Kramer, who he and I went through all this training together 15, 20 years ago, that he and I remember each other as much younger men with no families,
right,
that were young to late middle 20s. and we're trying to earn our Green Beret, and then seeing and spending the weekend with him and watching him train other people. I'm like, God, geez, I can't believe it. And he's here because we're running for Congress and we're trying to help our communities. And it's just was a reflection on where I came from and to where we are now. And it was just a real fun experience.
Well, it was interesting because all I expected to do is, have conversation with these guys and do some shooting and so on. But I brought my AR with a new scope on it. I have never sighted a gun. I don't know anything about it. And what I found was refreshing. Number one, all the guys there were super chill, just super cool. I mean, you look at what you and your buddies have done and how they've served this nation, and there's no arrogance, there's no ego. When Jim came up and looked at my gun, he goes, "Well, how much you spend on it?" And I told him, and he goes, "That's not enough. You need to spend as much on your scope as you spend on your gun," right? And I took that to heart, right? Because this is a person who used that tool for a very specific purpose, right? Then he goes to this crappy scope I got. And within 10, 15 minutes, my groupings of how close, he sat there and dialed it in and we got it figured out. And he showed me the process. That is invaluable. Regardless of whatever happens in the future, just knowing how to operate that piece of gear more as a tool, right, than as a weapon, it's invaluable. I can't wait for you to do it again.
Yeah, it was. And we shot so much. It's funny you say that. We do it again, because we will do it again, because we win I've already talked to the owner of Briggs Core Dynamic out there, and we talked about doing it again. Whether we win the primary or not, this kind of stuff has to happen.
Right.
These organizations, like they have a Briggs Core, is so great for a place like the 4th Congressional District. And you said that's, these are humble people that want to share their craft with you.
Yep.
And with we set our injuries aside and we go to learn. I'm a Green Beret and I'm missing shots and I'm using a new sight. It's hard for me. I shot so much, people. I had to admit to the owner of the place, my hand is still probably swollen. I still have crepitus in my hand from shooting so many rounds in the cold, and I hadn't shot that long, and so my hands hurt after the fact. So it's a humbling experience for everybody that goes there. And the instructors are top notch. The medical class is top notch. The shooting was so much fun, and it was an invaluable experience. Just an incredible time. And I guarantee, if we win this, we are doing something there once or twice a year. In fact, that will probably be our yearly picnic. Will probably be a Core Dynamic.
Let's do it. Let's do it closer to summer. Right? A little bit outside of spring and maybe into summer. It was a little chilly out there. Yeah, a great environment, great group of guys, and a great cause. Raised a lot of money for Charles's campaign. But that doesn't mean we have enough. If you can help, please reach out. You can do that at Charles Bookwalter. I'm sorry, it's bookwalterforcongress.com, bookwalterforcongress.com, or you can go to firejimbaird.com. FireJimBaird.com. Baird is spelled B-A-I-R-D. And you can learn about all of his votes, what he's been doing, and all of that. Charles, that's all I have to say. Do you have anything to close up with tonight?
No, we're very busy. Please go to our website and check out all the activity that we're doing. Where there's a lot of Lincoln Day dinners. I encourage you. And if you're interested, if you live in the district and you'd like to join us at a Lincoln Day dinner, shoot us a text. Because we usually buy a table and we can fill it up. We have no problem filling it up with volunteers and people that come. But if you're a new person into politics and you're following the campaign and you want to join us at a Lincoln Day dinner and you want to see what's going on inside politics in your county, I can introduce you to some people. Let us know and you can join us at a Lincoln Day dinner. We have candidate forums in counties all throughout the 4th Congressional District. I encourage you, go to a candidate forum, ask them questions, and I appreciate everyone showing up and all the help that we are getting with our campaign. We got a lot of momentum right now, and it's more exciting than it's been. We've after doing this since May, it's like now it's really picking up. And I'm looking around like, where's everybody been? We've been doing this since May, because it's so much going on right now. Pretty exciting.
I got a message here from Cynthia Groves. Door knockers, volunteers, you're still looking for those, right? People to help you get yard signs, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, should I give some stats on how many doors we've knocked?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
That's impressive.
for all of you that are following, that are interested in this, we've knocked on about 25,000 doors since May 21st. I'm giving information to our opponents, but whatever. I don't. This is how you do it. You want to see how you do it. This is how you do it. And we've passed out almost 50,000 pieces of literature that we've purchased in parades, fairs, and door knocking. We just got so many volunteers that are going out in each county that maybe we'll be knocking on your door very soon. We'll be out on Saturday and Sunday. Not this Sunday because it's Easter Sunday, but it's very exciting, and that's how, again, I get these questions like, how are you doing this? So it's by the grace of God and by all these volunteers that have decided that enough is enough, and they're ready to get involved and get engaged.
Well, Charles, let's wrap this up. I'll say this one more time. We'll be back again to Thursday night, next Thursday night, 7 p.m. We kind of cut it short tonight. There's been a lot of stuff going on for both Charles and I today, so we got to get back to that.
We did an hour.
We did an hour. So we're good. That's an hour more than Jim Baird has done on any of these. So if you're looking for somebody who is active and proactive and you want to be a part of it, please join the Bookwalter for Congress campaign. Learn more about him at bookwalterforcongress.com. If you want to get a yard sign or make a contribution, all of that stuff can be taken care of there. With that being said, we're out of here. We'll see you again next Thursday, 7 p.m. See you then.
Thank you.
My name's Charles Bookwalter, and I'm running for U.S. Congress. In the average campaign commercial, the announcer, backed by patriotic music, would inform you I'm a former Green Beret and Bronze Star recipient. Or you'd be told how millions to Ukraine, or that he authored the bill to bring carbon sequestration plants and Joe Biden's Green New Deal to Indiana. But this isn't that kind of ad. I just want to let you know, for the first time in 6 years, you have a choice in the Republican primary. I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I humbly ask for your vote on May 7th. I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
This is Jim Baird. Jim Baird claims to be a conservative, claims to have the same exact values you have, then turns around and votes in favor of Joe Biden's bloated $1.2 trillion spending bill. Here's what's in it.
This budget funds full-term abortion. It funds DEI. It funds trans ideology on our youth as young as 12 years old.
For the first time in 6 years, the 4th District has a choice in who we send to Washington, D.C. On May 7th, vote for true conservative leadership. Charles Bookwalter.
I'm Charles Bookwalter, and I approve this message.
Why is Jim Baird working so hard to suck CO2 out of the air, turn it into a sludge, and then force it deep into the Hoosier heartland? More importantly, what happens if this sludge gets into our water supply?